Welcome to I Communicate. I'm Mark Altman, founder of Mindset Go, and your host. Today, we're taking apart three words leaders treat as interchangeable: accountability, responsibility, and ownership. They're not the same word, and the gap between them is exactly where excuses live, where
Mm,
a culture of excellence either gets built or quietly erodes, and where good people learn to manage the exception instead of meet the standard. My guest has spent more than a decade running CEO peer groups in the Dallas Fort Worth area, first at what used to be called Renaissance Executive Forums. He has also written the book Nobody Cares. Robert, welcome to I Communicate.
thank you so much.
Robert, I got to start. I'm sure our listeners are wondering, it's such a polarizing name for a book. And what strikes me about it is, and I want it to be fair to Robert, is it actually is nobody cares until you do. So it gets
Correct.
full billing here.
Yeah.
And, one of the things about communication is absolute language, right? So to name your book such an absolute title, nobody cares until you do, I got to come right out and ask you, how did that book title come about?
Well, it certainly is an attention getter, and that helps when you're on in book sales. There's 480 books a day that get released into the market. It's absurd
Wow.
how many books are out there. And once you write a book, that doesn't mean anyone's going to read it. So we were trying to maximize our attention getting function. But really, at the heart of the heart of the whole principle, it was this mindset that I kept telling my at that time 15-year-old son, look, nobody cares. And that's the honest truth. Nobody cares whether or not you have a good teacher or your friends are jerks or all these things that we use to hold us back as victims. Nobody really cares about your stuff because we got our own stuff to deal with. I could barely deal with my stuff, let alone trying to think about why should I care about your stuff. And so that's the principle of what the book is all about. Nobody cares about your blame, excuse, or problems or frustrations or saying you can't do anything about it unless you first care enough to try to do something.
So Robert, that is such a positive, healthy mindset, right? So I find, and I want to start, building on what you just said. I find that mindset is a word that is somewhat nebulous to people. And I use the word nebulous because everybody knows you're supposed to, quote unquote, have a good mindset. The question is, it's one thing to know you should have one. It's another thing to know how to create that for yourself. So my question is, you're talking at a high level, in my opinion, about being empowered,
Yeah,
right? So
right.
how do you shift if someone has that victim mindset? And I want to get into something you share with me when we first were getting to know each other that I love, which I'll get into in a second. But if you're shifting from a victim mindset to an empowered mindset, what does that transition look like?
No one really actually knows. No one's real. I don't think people are really aware of their mindset very often. I could be driving down the road thinking everything's great. I've got some praise music on. I'm singing all this music. I'm having a great time. And some guy cuts me off on the freeway and I want to drive up to him and give him the middle finger. Where does that come from? So clearly my mindset is not what I think it is at the time. There's an awful lot that's underlying into our lives. So what we've got to do is feel more power about the things that often dog us just by being aware. I think the benefit of being aware is what helps us create a mindset that really is stable, that stays with us. The moods shift way too often in our mindset because we're really not thinking as clearly as we think we're thinking. I know it sounds like think too often. But when I invite someone else into my story, and this is really what the power of accountability is, when you invite someone into your story, they legitimize whether or not you are having the mindset you think you have. Uh, I remember doing a meeting with a speaking session with a client, and it was great. And I did a great job. And they all kept coming up to me afterwards and going, "Oh, this was the best speaker we've ever had." And it was very flattering. And on the way home, I asked my wife, because she's always with me at these events, a lot of people said this was the best speaker they ever heard. I wonder how many great speakers are out there. And she said,
Mm.
one less than you think. And I need her to ground me a lot of times because I think we pump ourselves up unfairly and then we're not ready to handle things when they come our way.
So interesting. So, a lot of times when I work with leadership teams or executive peer groups, I will ask them a question, and I guess I shouldn't be proud of this because I think I'm setting them up to some degree, but the question I ask them is when you are creating an action plan for someone to change their behavior or to change their habits, what is the first step in that action plan. And of course, Robert, a lot of the times what I get is, well, it depends what the issue is or it depends what the behavior is. And I said, it doesn't. And I say that the first step is non-negotiably recognizing the opportunity to do things differently. And
Mhm.
that's what you're talking about with self-awareness, right? It has to
Yeah,
start with the awareness piece. And you shared with me, and I want you to share this with our audience because I think it's really powerful. You shared the four traps that keep people as
yeah.
victims, and I think it's so easy and digestible. So I want you to share that with our audience.
Sure, sure. And they're very subtle because I think we've called them different things over the years. We talked about this too in our discussions. The four traps to be upfront of it is blame, excuse, say I can't, or wait and hope. And those four things that we do, in a lot of ways, we think those are good things. Certainly, waiting and hoping, and being patient is a decent thing to be having in your life, so you're not angry and urgent all the time, panic. But these are things that hold us back from really living the life that we want. When things go wrong, the first thing we do is we blame. And blame is quick because it just gets it off our back. Well, it's his fault. He didn't tell me. Mark did this. And these kind of things that we do really just stop us from being having any more momentum because it's someone else's problem. If that doesn't work, we make excuses. And you and I talked about this. Excuse and reason, they're kind of blurred. Depends on who's telling it. If I tell us something, it's a good reason. If you tell me something, it's an excuse. So we like to put the label on it based on who's serving it up. But the reality is, whatever you want to call it, you want to call it excuse, you want to call it reason, it doesn't change the story. It still didn't get done. People show up late. Well, traffic was really bad. Traffic's always bad. There's never a time. COVID made traffic not bad for a while, but otherwise, every day there's traffic. So if you have traffic, that's normal. You're supposed to plan for this. No excuse, no reason either. So if those two don't work, then we say, well, I can't. I can't do anything about it. And in our life, we realize that we use that I can't statement so many times. I can't go to counseling with my wife. That would be awkward. That would be embarrassing. I can't sell my house and start over. Yeah, yeah, you can. You have to change the word I can't to I won't. And when you say I won't, then it's different because I'm now saying no. If you say I can't, people go, oh, yeah, that's a bummer for you. But if you say I won't, they go, well, why not? So we're actually freeing ourselves to have a solution by saying the word I won't instead of the word I can't. But I can't is used an awful lot to hold us back. And so then if those don't work, then we just kind of wait and hope that everything settles in. Hey, I'll make minimum payments on my credit cards. I can keep up with it. This wait and hope mindset that, I really should cut back and eat better. I'm only slightly diabetic. I remember my doctor saying, you're pre-diabetic. Do you want to wait till the next time I see you where you are pre-diabetic and then we can move on to diabetic? No, no, no. I get it. I get it. And so these are those things where you just wait and hope that somehow it gets better, and it doesn't. It always gets worse. And those are the four traps that people fall in that keep them as a victim.
So I want to break a few of those down a little bit. And I want to start with excuses and the timing of our discussion today. It is very timely, and here's why. I I just recently had a conversation with my team at Mindset Go, and we were talking about how an excuse helps. Because I find that I'm around people at times that give me excuses when they don't meet expectations or they aren't following through on commitments. And so sometimes when I get an excuse, I will actually say to people, I'm curious why you offered up that excuse there. And I'm not trying to be snarky or insensitive, but I'm trying to draw attention to the fact that it's one thing to say, oh, I didn't meet the deadline because I had other things to do, or I had other priorities, or I got busy. That's the one, of course, I got
Yeah.
busy.
You're the only person who's busy.
Right, right. So if someone says I wasn't able to meet the deadline because I got busy, why attach the I got busy? I actually had this conversation with my team. What is the benefit for you?
What's your purpose of doing that?
What's the purpose? And it was an interesting conversation at a very general level. I think most often the purpose is it's actually the root cause of that is it's a cry for either sympathy, empathy, or compassion.
Yeah, don't get on my case about this. And the reality is, let's say you got busy. Let's say I gave you this task and it was due on Friday and on Tuesday you got slammed. What option do you have to not wait? This is where accountability is proactive. We talked about this before. The difference between being a person who truly has accountability is the willingness to be proactive. If on Tuesday you got something that came up, you had a death in the family, whatever come up, you could say on Tuesday, I'm not going to make the deadline on Friday. And you could proactively say, Joe, could you cover this for me? Because it's still got to get done, and I got to go take care of my relative who died. So you can proactively do something about it. But what happens is Friday comes and goes, it doesn't get done. And on Monday we talk and they go, well, I was busy. Yeah, but you didn't own it. That's accountability. You own it. This is still your thing. So on Tuesday, you could have done something else to make it so it still gets done, but you didn't. Therefore, you didn't own it, even though you got busy.
So, Robert, are you familiar with the book, The Four Agreements?
I've heard of it.
Okay, so it's a book by a guy named Miguel Don Ruiz. And the premise of the book is that if you practice these four habits in your life, then you will be happy, you will be successful. And there's four habits. And one of the habits he talks about in the book is being impeccable with your word. And
Mm,
when I read this book, I was like, I don't like that. And I didn't like it because I have never met anybody in my life, including me, that is always impeccable with their word. It sets up a standard that I do not think is possible. And let me explain, because it's very consistent with what you were just talking about. I think you'll confirm. So I like when I think of um, creating a culture of excellence, or when I think of excellence, personal excellence, I think of the standard of being impeccable with your word or communicating in advance if you can't.
yeah,
Right. So now we allow humanity to come in where it's not perfection, because now the message to me is more focused on the ownership piece that you're talking about, I believe. And it's focused on, hey, at least if you can't be perfect with being impeccable with your word, look up and value the commitment you made.
yeah.
Value that and communicate. So I love that spin where be impeccable with your word and communicate in advance if you can't.
But isn't everything we strive to do aspirational? I don't know that I ever achieve anything. If you're going to pursue excellence, it's never done. If you're going to pursue honesty, it's never done. Love is never done. And so I don't know that having the word that makes you feel uncomfortable is a problem, because it would only be a problem if you had a deadline that you had to be excellent. You had to be impeccable. You're never done. But I think this is, again, this is the journey that we're all on, is trying to proactively work towards the life that we really want. We wrote this book because we want people to have the life, which includes your business, your marriage, your faith, your health, your money, everything. We want you to have what you want. And too many people make excuses or blame or say they can't or wait and hope and keep themselves as a victim when you could be pursuing the life you really want. I'm not done. I'm still alive. So I'm still pursuing the life I really want, but I'm proactively chasing it. And I'm not letting anything hold me in the role of a victim, but it's a journey I'll be on till I'm no longer on earth.
Well, I got to ask you, because you may be able to solve a big problem for me and my girlfriend, Robert. So I got to ask you a really important question. You just said excellence is aspirational, right? So I have a saying, and I know I'm not the only one who says this, but I'll say that if someone says, if my girlfriend says, the outfit I'm wearing today on a 1 to 10 scale, how much do you like that? And I look at her, and I've told her this since we met, is I don't give tens.
Yeah, I don't give
Like I
tens
just
either.
don't give tens. Like it's just not part of my fiber of DNA of who I am. So is
Right.
that kind of what you're saying where excellence is aspirational? Because if you give a 10, that implies that it's perfect.
There's no more, there's nowhere to go beyond that. And it's never the case. Unless you're talking a cheeseburger can be a 10. But in reality, everything else we're dealing with, the reality is that it constantly changes. What you could have done today will be completely different of what the potential will be in 10 years. I mean, AI can make things that we never dreamed of in just moments. So is the work level excellent based on what it would have been 10 years ago with the skills we had, the knowledge, the resources, the capabilities? No. So it never could be a 10. And we were constantly striving towards it. I define excellence as the pursuing the life you really want to the best of your ability. And that's your definition. You get to decide excellence for you. My CEO clients, some of them are all about growing the business and making it huge and having huge revenue numbers. Other ones talking about a legacy they want to create where their family can take over and run it someday in the future. Others talk about building a culture where people feel like it's safe to be here and to be real and to count on a job for a long time. That their definition of excellence is all very different, but they get to define what it looks like, and then they should pursue it in their lives.
So let's go with the flip side of what you just said, because what the naysayers might say to you and my shared belief around this. So the naysayer who just heard me say I don't give tens comes back and says, well, then I'm never going to be able to meet your expectations and I have to be perfect. And there's that attitude and mindset of it's too extreme. Now, you and I don't believe that, but if you were talking to someone who said, well, if I never can achieve your expectations or meet your expectations, then why bother? What do you say to someone like that?
Yeah, you'll never be a 10 any more than I'll be a 10 in the work that we do. My expectations are not you deliver a 10. My expectations is you own it. When we delegate to other people, we know it's not going to be the same way we do it. Hopefully, it'll be better at some point. But in that journey of taking it over and delegating, it usually is worse. It's not as good as I could do it. However, if I let them do it, I can go do this or go this or this. So we choose to delegate things knowing that it will not be to the level of what I could do because I created it. And I'm biased. I look at it and go, well, I would have done this. I would have made it blue and made it over here. Just because that's what I like. So therefore it's better. And it's so skewed. The reality is my expectations are going to be harder on other people than I am myself because I already know what I wanted to do. So we have to be real about the fact no one's going to deliver a 10. You're not going to deliver a 10. But when I delegate to someone, I do believe it will meet my expectations and still not be perfect because I gave it to you. And if you complete it and it's not like I would have done, it's still okay. That's the philosophy behind delegation. We could talk about that another time. But often we're willing to delegate because we're trading something else I want to get to. CEOs never have enough time to do everything they want to do. And one of the key principles we talk about is you will never get it all done. So get that in your head. You will never get it all done. Therefore, what are you willing to trade? If I want to go spend more time with my spouse and enjoy my life a little more, am I willing to let the company go do this at a level less than I think I could do, which may not be true? Nonetheless, I'm willing to transfer that over to them so I can go chase this other thing. Those trade offs are why we delegate. And that means it's not going to be done your way, but that's okay.
So let me ask you this, Robert. You also made it, I just wrote it down. You said your definition of excellence, and part of your definition was to do things to the best of your ability. So that's a very polarizing comment for me because, and I don't know, I'm just going to ask to be safe. Are you either a fan of or familiar with Star Wars?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
love Star Wars.
Okay, great. Me too. So then you
Oh,
know the
there's
whole.
my Darth Vader on the shelf right here on one of these shelves. There he is.
Oh boy, I love that. I love that. So you know that one of the Yoda isms is do or do not, there is no try.
Right.
So when I hear, and I have to talk to my kids about this, when I hear someone say, I'll try, or I tried, my response is often, can you share with me what you mean by that? Because my definition of try may be definition different than your definition or their definition of try. So sometimes when I think of doing something to the best of your ability, that can be very subjective. And I wonder what people are measuring against to be able to say they've done it to the best of their ability.
I think you're implying or setting up a scenario where it didn't get done, and the answer is I tried. But in our journey towards excellence, it does get done. It's just never done. So in other words, the work towards it is done. Every day I get up, I make 16 sales calls, I do 2 meetings, I write this paper, I file these documents, I pay this bill. That has to get done. But the pursuit of excellence is pursuing the life you really want and doing the best of your ability while you do that. The life I really want is different than the life you want. So it is subjective because in my life, spending time with my beautiful wife, Kathy, is way more important than any money I make. I like making money. I like taking care of my clients. I like growing my business, but I like being with Kathy. And so to me, that is number one. So if I'm pursuing that and I'm doing well at that, then it's excellence because that's what I've chose to pursue. It's not a cop out, but I don't have to live your life. You don't have to live mine. But at some point, you own it. This is the journey I'm on. I'm choosing to do it with excellence because I'm consistently getting better and better and working towards the life that I really want. That's the journey.
Well, yeah, okay. I didn't mean though necessarily it didn't get done. I meant that I often hear that when standards. It's talking about meeting expectations, exceeding expectations, standards. So let's say it did get done. And let's say there was clear expectations. The question is if someone says, well, I did it to the best of my ability,
Why should they have to say that though? Are you saying it wasn't done well?
no, well, I'm, first of all, they don't have to say it. They're saying it. I'm not asking
It
them
must
to
have
say
come
it.
up though for some reason.
I think that it comes up when people give feedback. My point is that who's to measure whether it comes up, how it comes up. I'm saying there's a personal level of ownership there in really knowing that you did it to the best of your ability. Because I think people could say that and didn't actually do it to the best of their ability.
Yeah, how do you know if it's a cop out versus
Right.
it truly was?
That's exactly what I mean.
This is why we create standard operating procedures. This is why we proactively train. This is why we communicate about expectations and then we give people time to do it. You know, if you're the CEO of your company, you're leading a team. You're not doing the work, they're doing the work. Or they're leading teams that do the work and you're leading them in how you manage or not manage, mentor and care for them. And so the expectation is that the work is done. But is it done the way I would do it? Probably not. But is it following the SOPs that we created? Is it following the processes and the documents that live out our core values? We create one of the things I do with my clients is we create a water line. It's a one-page document that allows us to understand what what is going on so I can make decisions all the time and deliver the results that I need to as an employee. And in it, it has the core values that we chase, our mission and our vision, and it has the rules that are number one concern lately of where our company's going and the goals that we have. This one-page document allows me to delegate to somebody and say, go do this. And they can make a decision on their own and to the best of their ability based on the knowledge they have and the documents we've created and the training we've given them and the core values that we say we aspire to. They can do everything and it should be able to be delivered to the level of my expectation.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, yeah, I would agree with you.
Now, if they don't do it, maybe they don't care and they don't want to work here, and we should go, help them go find another job.
Well,
That's a very different story than
it
someone just
is.
saying, I don't have the training, I don't have the knowledge, the document wasn't there. These kinds of things that we just, okay, let's work on getting that better. Let's create that, let's document, let's train. But if someone just doesn't give a rip, then they need to work somewhere else.
Robert, in your opinion, when you in the book you wrote and the research you've done in running the peer groups, I'm just curious from a coachability standpoint, if someone ha has more of a victim's mindset and we're trying to shift them to an empowerment, like how much of it is innate, how much of it's coachable? Like what is your thought on that transition and how possible it is?
I've never met someone that couldn't change. I think the biggest problem is they're unaware of it. Just in that one example between a reason or an excuse is very simple that we see things a different way. We bought into our own stories. So when I coach someone, I never tell them what to do. I just ask questions. Well, how does it feel to run the company today? What challenges are you having? What frustrations? Do you like the way this is going? Well, what would you want to do differently? Why aren't you doing it? So when we get to these kinds of questions and they decide what they want, then the question is, why aren't you doing it? And that's where the blame, excuse, say I can't, or wait and hope kicks in. And so I just ask them, are you okay with that? Or do you want to change? Now, if you're really willing to change, you're done with all these excuses and these things that hold you back, you'll change. I don't have to get them to understand a new principle. I just have to help them see that they're living as a victim and they weren't aware of it. Most people aren't aware the behavior they have is holding them back.
Well, the baseline for me that we coach at the CEO level is there's three factors that have to be in place for someone to change. One, what we've been talking about, awareness. Two, ownership, like I own that I need to do this
Yeah,
differently. And three is you use the term willingness, we call it motivation, same thing,
motivation.
but
Yeah.
awareness, accountability, and motivation. And what's interesting to me is I think the one, believe it or not, from my experience, the one that can be hardest is the willingness component, because even if you're aware you have a victim's or fixed mindset, it's a comfort zone for a lot of people,
It is.
right? So,
It is.
and actually, not only is it a comfort zone, I think it you know the expression when people say, well, you just got to get out of your comfort zone. I always say to myself, okay, if you say so, I'll just do it right now. Like it's that
I
easy,
like my
right?
comfort zone. That's why it's comfortable.
Right. So I guess that's part of it for me is if you check those three boxes of awareness, accountability, and motivation, if someone is struggling to be motivated to do it, that's what I want to say to you or ask you really is to say, is that part coachable? Like, do you think motivation and willingness is coachable?
Well, nobody can motivate anybody. You can only motivate yourself. And what I try to do is help them find the internal motivation that will help them make those tough decisions. For us, in my own journey, when the pain of where I was worse than the pain of where I'll have to go to get what I want, I was willing to change. And so when your doctor says, hey, you've got diabetes, you need to stop doing this, or you've got lung cancer, you need to, then all of a sudden, okay, oh, I'll change. I don't know why we as a world are willing to wait until the most horrible things happen before we decide to make a decision to change. But for me, when I work with leaders, they already know what to do. In most cases, I'm never enlightening them to a thing they didn't know. I'm helping them, though, be aware of that you have the tools to move past the things that are holding you back. But is the pain severe enough for you to want to do it? And I think we don't feel like we are worthy of having the freedom to pursue it. I don't think we believe there's really a way to change it. I think we've given up. So many leaders are so beat down and so frustrated with
For
people.
sure.
And every time you turn around, there's a new law, there's a new thing. You have to know everything about everything. It's exhausting. And I help them remember there is hope. You can do this. You've got this far. You have a 100% success rate so far. You're still alive. And so I think this is where you press on and go, is it worth it to you to have what you say you want? And maybe it's really not the goal. Maybe just making the company go from 40 million to 50 is not enough motivation for you. Maybe it's about now you've made a $40 million company. Why not build a team that's ready to take over and let you get your life back and let you enjoy the next 30 years of your life? Why not build the team that does that so that you have some value in the company so you could actually sell it someday? Because everybody dies. You're naive if you think I'll just do this forever. You're going to die, have a heart attack at work, and then your company's screwed because nobody was ready to take over. And it loses all its money, goes bankrupt, and everybody loses their job. You want that? There's got to be a motivation inside of you that says, I want this bad. And then when you're there, we can help them, you and I, get clarity, get free of what's holding you back, and get going.
Yeah, I love what you said, Robert. I feel like in my experience working with leaders at all levels for that matter, but certainly at the executive level, I don't think in my career, and I don't have an actual stat to back this up. This is my own experience, just for full transparency. If I kept track of all the leaders I've interacted with, whether they've been clients or not, just leaders I've interacted with, I would say at best, 5% of them actually know what coaching people really is, like what it means to actually coach a person. Because I think a lot of executives, I mean, they think that's telling people what to do or telling them what they're doing wrong and so on and so forth. And the reason I bring this up is because one of the first things I'll say is, please remove the words persuade and convince from your vocabulary. Remove those words. And so when you say you can't motivate anyone, one of the things I've thought about is I hate the term motivational speaker,
Yeah.
right? And even I use it because it's from an
It's the word that
SEO,
everyone uses.
people use it, right?
Yeah.
But would you agree? Because one of the things I present as how I'm different as a speaker or a facilitator is my goal is to actually motivate awareness,
Mm,
right? That's what I try to do to differentiate my work. And I think if you are going to I don't care if it's Tony Robbins, if you're going to go listen to a motivational speaker, what is the likelihood that at the end of that 45 minutes, you change? Like
right.
you might
Right.
be enthusiastic, you may be excited, but the
Right.
likelihood you do anything different, and I think that's the point you're making where you don't per se motivate anyone. Is that fair comment?
Yeah, absolutely. I get hired to do speaking engagements and I take them because I want to tell people about principles of accountability or other things that I've learned over the years. But to me, it's a little empty because when I'm done, they come up, this was great, thank you.
Right.
And then I leave. I have no idea if their lives are any better. What I prefer to do is do workshops and then come back and then come back and come back and
Me
come
too.
back. And because those are the gigs where I can have long-term impact on people's lives. My quest in my business is not to make a bunch of dough. It's about change people's lives. And I feel like I'm really good at it. So I'll take a speaking gig and hoping that it'll open the door So I can say, why don't I come back and let's work with the team to take this into the ranks and let's apply it to the company. Let me come back and take another time and let me come back regularly. And sadly, a lot of times they just wanted someone to kill some time at a retreat. There you go. I want to get them, motivate everybody to work harder. And yeah, I'll take the opportunity and hope I have some impact. But to me, you're right. Motivation is not the tool. We need to equip them for a long-term journey of
Mm.
accountability. That's where you get stuff done.
Robert, let me ask you your thoughts on a concept, and you just kind of alluded to it a couple of minutes ago. Um, and it's actually a two-part question because first, I want to know if the experience I'm sharing is similar to yours, and then second, what your thoughts are on the concept I'm sharing. So,
Okay.
in my experience, um, I think when I bring a culture of excellence or a leadership development plan to a CEO, okay, my experience is that, and I'll ask the first question first so we don't get too far down this road, but
I'll forget.
yeah, right. Well, me too. So, my first experience is that CEO is likely to make an investment in their people, in ownership, in changing a culture if either A, they're in big growth scaling mode or they made an acquisition or something big is happening in a positive way, or the complete opposite, where things are going poorly, retention may be a problem, recruiting may be a problem, or things like that. And the point I'm making, and what I'd like your insight on, is I feel like when people are in the middle and there's not an extreme either way, they're unlikely to act. And the point you made a couple of minutes ago is, in so many words, is people, unless they're backed into a corner, like they don't
They don't do it.
typically shift their mindset and change. And I'm curious if that's similar experience for you.
My experience has been that the CEO doesn't give a rip about the speaker or the motivational person or the person presenting a workshop. The HR person brought them in, or the
Hmm.
someone on some team brought them in. And they sit there in the back of the room with their arms crossed like this, going, I sure hope all these employees are listening. And this is why I run CEO groups, because until I get the CEO to buy in and to have a vision of what it looks like to run a company where everybody truly owns it, it's going to be a problem for them to deal with. You guys need to figure out how to get stuff done. But you're not creating a place where things get done. You're creating a place where people blame and make excuses and say they can't, or just wait and hope that it gets better. And,
Hmm.
and you have allowed this to happen. It's your company. So own it. It starts with the CEO. And so I have found that they're so disengaged and they're often like, who's this guy? They have no idea that I'm there and who I am and what I'm going to talk about. And I've watched. I got hired to do a session in some other state, and I was out there, and the guy during one of the breaks came up and said something heinous and ridiculous, and I had to go, no, that's not actually accurate. So in front of all his employees, I had to say, no, that's not at all what I'm talking about. And I had to school him. And I felt really bad, but he said something stupid. If he had been willing to meet with me before we had this event, which I ask everybody, meet with me. Let me understand your needs. Let's talk about what I should be aware of. He didn't want it. It's like, just get it done. And so he stepped in it. And that was unfortunate. So I think we need leaders who will start with them first. This is why I run groups for CEOs. It starts at the top. You own it, it trickles on down to everybody else.
Well, yeah, so agreed. And I guess what I was saying is that if you're shifting from a victim to an empowered mindset, the question is, what's going to motivate you to do so? And do you have to feel real consequences? Because the whole premise of consequences is if people don't change in most cases until they're backed into a corner, they have to be able to articulate either what would motivate them to do it differently, what they see as the benefits to doing it differently, or what the consequences would be of maintaining a victim mindset. So that's where I'm going. Like that consequence piece, the person articulating the consequences, I think is critical.
Yeah. Sadly, I don't get a chance to talk to the CEO before most gigs when I come in to speak. It's hired by somebody else. And so I would love to have that buy-in from the top. But yeah, you're right. Until there's a motivation internally, they're just not going to do it, which is why I really resist my speaking gigs as my number one source of opportunity. Workshops to me are more valuable
Yeah.
because in a workshop, we can talk about it. I can get with the CEO. I can say, this is a conversation we need to have right now. I feel like it adds more value.
So I want to just shift gears for our last segment, Robert. I want to just kind of ask, I know you and I had a great conversation about the difference between accountability and responsibility and
Mm.
proactive versus reactive. And I want to just talk for a few minutes about the concept of being proactive and reactive. And we talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, but could you just speak to what it means? What are some behaviors that if you saw someone being demonstrating ownership and being proactive, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, the difference between accountability and responsibility really is in a proactive nature. You proactively do something. We talked about earlier when the person was busy, too busy to get it done. And I said on Tuesday when you got too busy, you could have proactively said, "Hey, I can't get this done, Joe. Can you help me out?" So when I talk to leaders, they often are taking care of everything. They are fixing everything, but it's always in a response mode. It's a knee-jerk reaction to a problem. They're putting out fires. If you ask CEOs and business owners, what's exhausting to you lately? I put out a fire every day. I'm just constantly putting out fires. Are you then learning from this and proactively doing something so you don't have a fire again? I don't have time for that. Well, then you're going to have a fire again, dude. And so this kind of mindset that you are uh, doing more than just fixing it, that's the responsible thing to do. The accountable thing to do is to say, hey, I will have employees who will become disengaged and uninterested in their job. How do I keep them interested long enough to stay around the company and get the job done? So what kind of training am I going to do? What kind of events am I going to do? Maslow's hierarchy of needs says at the beginning, you get a paycheck, you get room and board, you're done. I don't need anything else. There's no motivation anymore. The next step I go up to is about recognition for me and with the work I do. And that only lasts so long unless you constantly give me an attaboy or some kind of extra bonus. I don't feel like I'm significant here, so I lose my motivation. There's so much that goes into keeping people on track and focused. But we don't want to do with that. Just do your damn job. When I hired you, you're supposed to do this. Just do your job. Let me go do my job. But there's things that come up. People have a life. Their marriage is falling apart. Their kid has a disease. Their finances are stupid and they run out of money. And now they have to figure out how to get a second job. So they show up at work exhausted. These are realities of the world we live in. You want to put your blinders in and say, I don't care? You get what you get. But if you're going to proactively recognize that you own the outcome of the company, that might mean that you have to do things that you don't want to do, but you work with humans. And as long as we have humans, they're going to need more than just do your damn job.
Robert, if you had, as people listen to this episode and digest this episode, if you had, I'm gonna be greedy and ask for three. But if you had three things that you would say, boy, whatever you heard on this episode, if you could think about these three things differently, do these things differently, you pick. It can be a combination of do and think. What are the biggest takeaways you want people to have today?
Man, I want people to live the life they really want. I'm tired of people saying I can't. No, you mean I won't. And it may be hard, but life is hard either way. And I would rather, one of the chapters we talk about, once you recognize you're trapped as a victim and you're tired of doing that and you say, nobody cares until I do, you start to move to be a victor. And in that case, you recognize the reality of what's going on and you then embrace the suck. And life can suck, but I would rather go through the suck of owning what I want as an outcome than to stay in the suck and be a victim. So this is the choice you make. For us, we owed $90,000 in debt, not including the house or cars. And it sucked. And I was stuck in it for years and years as it got bigger and bigger. So we sold our house and decided to start over and take all that money and pay off the bills and regain control over our lives. And it sucked. And it sucked to move out of our beautiful house and all this stuff to a small place we rent. But we didn't want to be stuck in the old suck. So we went through a different suck to get to a great life. So you can pursue the life you want, but it might suck for a while. But don't tell me I can't have the life I want. Everything you want, if you really want it, can be achieved if you work at it hard enough. It might be a long journey and it might take a lot of sacrifices, but you can achieve it. So I would want people to really pursue the life they want. I'd want you to also be vulnerable. If you're not involved with someone like you, Mark, who can help them see truths that they block out because they're comfortable with their own lies, they don't get the chance to really change anything. My clients come into my world because they're willing to be vulnerable and honest to other business owners and say, I don't know what I'm doing. because you don't know what you're doing. 20 years ago, you made a widget, you were really good at it, and people bought a lot of widgets. And now you've got a lot of other people to make more widgets. You don't know how to run a company. You learn as you go along, but you really don't know. You're not that great at it. Besides, even if you were great at it, the world changes every day. Did you know AI 10 years ago? No. Do you know cybersecurity, HR law, employ all the things you have to know and do? There's no way you can know it all. So the reality is you're going to have challenges. And I think that's where you invite someone in to say, I need your help. You're vulnerable with your team. You're vulnerable with a group of other leaders, because that's how you get to pursue the life you really want. And I think we should have fun. That would be the third one. You should
Love
have
it.
fun in life. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. You can have fun.
Robert, just a few final thoughts. Thank you for all that. A few final thoughts to end the show. One is, if you are watching this and not listening to this, one thing that really has resonated with me is if you look in Robert's background, the word grateful. And I mean, to me, to be empowered and not be a victim, that's such a big part. Gratitude's such a big part of that. So two thoughts. And one is, and hopefully this resonates with you, Robert. I always say to people, that if you could only ask three questions to people in life, and we both know the importance of asking questions, but if you could ask three questions to yourself and to others, these would be the three questions I would pick. The first question would be, what's in the way? To
Mm,
understand the barrier blocking you. The second question would be, what do you propose? Right? To solve your problem, to feel empowered. And the third question would be, what's the plan? So you can take action and move forward. And those
great.
three questions to me, think about what Robert's been saying this episode about shifting from victim to empowered. And those three questions really paved the way for that in many ways. Number two, buy Robert's book, Nobody Cares Until You Do, because he's so insightful. The times I've talked to him, I've learned a lot from him, and I think you would learn a lot from his book. And last but not least, Robert, could you just share quickly how, if people are interested in joining your peer group, how they would go about doing that?
Yeah, our peer group serves the market here in Texas and DFW area, but I travel all over the country doing workshops and speaking. I didn't mean to trash my speaking opportunities. I love those still, but you know what I mean. So they can reach me at my website, which is Ref Dallas, REF Dallas.com. And there, that's what I do for a living. That's my peer groups, but it also has a link to contact me. And I'd be glad to talk with anyone about how I can help their team really truly create accountability.
Awesome. Robert, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure having you on I Communicate, and look forward to connecting with you after the fact.
Thanks, Mark.
All right. Thank you.